Hey everybody, welcome into Lettermen Row HQ. It's Lettermen Live, brought to you by Byers Auto. I'm Austin Ward. Just got my buddy Zach Boren with me for now. We're gonna
sidekick.
You took my place. I don't know. Do I get to be your sidekick? Maybe you should be hosting today. We're gonna try and cover a little bit of ground here. It is May. There's not a lot of news going on in the Ohio State football beat, which is a rarity.
Yeah.
We just had all the quarterback stuff, the end of spring ball. We're gonna get to some recruiting later on with Birmingham here on Lettermen Live, brought to you by Byers Auto. But the first thing, Zach came in and he was wearing this pullover that I wanted to see today.
Yeah.
Because Columbus, I've got worked up about this, Zach, and I'm going to get your thoughts on it as someone who's been inside the shoe and knows Columbus is obviously a town that supports the Buckeyes, and they are always going to. And that passion is probably never going to be matched. But when there's these people that are trying to throw this wet blanket on Columbus, oh, you're not a hockey town, or this is a bandwagon. I'm so disappointed by that take. And that's just putting it mildly, because this is a show we want kids to be able to watch.
Listen, this town continues to break records for NBC Sports, right? For the viewing chip. This is a town that had 12,000. I think they said 12 or 13,000.
13,000.
Yeah, 13,000 show up for a viewing party Saturday night.
5,000 for a scrimmage on a Monday afternoon.
I mean, what else can you do for this to not be considered a hockey town? This is what I have to say. It's a Midwestern town, right? Hockey's becoming a prevalent thing here, right? It's not like we're in Florida and hockey will never be a thing. It gets cold in the winter, right?
Yeah.
It's a winter town. They're going to get behind it. The Blue Jackets won a playoff series. They are so much better than they were even 5-6 years ago. This city, whether people want to admit it or not, love jumping on bandwagons when people succeed. That's why they love Ohio State football, right? Ohio State football year in and year out, guess what? Are at the top, or the tops in the country, right? And so this is a team they're having some success. They're in the final 8, right? Final 8 in the second round. People are getting behind this team. It's a hockey town, and it has been for a couple years. I'm not saying bandwagon. I'm just saying it's becoming bigger. And as years go on, people are going to still stay behind this team.
Well, at some point, you have to have a bandwagon just to start. You don't magically become a town that can support a professional franchise right off the bat. And what I think is so crazy about this, Zach, and you've dealt with this. I know you saw it. You got it on Twitter from some Boston fans. I've been reading about it in some other places. It doesn't mean that Columbus has forgot about the Buckeyes or that it's not a football town or a college football town more specifically. You can be both.
Yep.
People, Detroit, now that's a hockey town. Is it? I mean, they haven't experienced any playoff success in the last few years. They don't know they're not playing right now. Does that mean they don't love the Lions or the Tigers? Chicago, oh, you're a hockey town. Because they support the Blackhawks. Really? Or I thought they were a Cubs or a White Sox town or Bulls town. You can do both. And so I don't understand that. There's enough people in this town that can support the Buckeyes, and not everybody does. Newsflash, Columbus is a pretty big market.
Yeah.
Now the vast majority of the people do, but is there not enough room? Is there not enough bandwidth for people to support the Blue Jackets too? I don't understand it.
I couldn't agree with you more, and this is what I'm going to say. Boston wants to say, oh, they're this huge hockey town, and I did get into it with some Boston fans. But listen, you've got the Celtics, you've got the Red Sox, you've got the Patriots. Come on, you've got all these teams that you're claiming, and yes, they're very successful. But I'll tell you this, if you want to say you're a hockey town, you're so much better than us, why was Game 1 in Boston not even sold out? There were all these empty seats in Boston, the lower bowl. I know people that went to the game. We talked to people who went to the game. Guess what? There were tons of seats that were open. Columbus, you have a Monday night like tonight. You've had Tuesday games, Wednesday games, Thursday games. We haven't had any weekend. Granted, we had a Sunday night game, right? Every game sold out. We're breaking records for attendance during the week. Boston, come on, it's a Thursday night game at Game 1 of the series, and you can't even show up and sell out? I mean, get out of here.
You and I know. We were there last week. I've been to all 4 games so far. The decibel meeting inside the NWA, 120 or so. It's loud. People are engaged, and that happens at the Horseshoe. Why can't it go into Nationwide Arena? And my thing is that it is. There's room for both. And so that was one thing I just wanted to get off my chest, because we cover Ohio State football here, but Lettermen Row are also Blue Jackets fans.
We are. We're big Blue Jackets
and we have
supporters.
Enough time to do both.
Yeah, we for sure do. And you know what? They deserve some time right now. They for sure do. What they've done, they deserve time. During their season, they should get more coverage than what they do. Next year, no matter how this season ends, whether it ends tonight, tomorrow, winning the Stanley Cup, whatever it may be, guess what? This team going forward deserves more coverage here in Columbus. And guess what? They will, because they've gotten more coverage year over year.
Yeah, and we'll try to provide that wherever we can. like I said, we can't just do nothing but Ohio State football all the time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Even though we got 365 days to fill with LettermenRow.com. And Lettermen Live, brought to you by Byers Auto. We'll keep touching on that. Hopefully there will be more for us to discuss with the Blue Jackets after Game 6 and Game 7 this week. We'll see.
And Boston fans, I don't want to hear it.
I don't want to hear from Boston fans.
No. It's unbelievable, right? We won the World Series last year. All the Celtics are the greatest. They're the first ones to jump. They're the first ones to boo the Celtics. When they don't show out against the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, it's a worse fan base. New York and Boston, terrible.
I think Brandon Dubinsky won himself a lot of fans, not just in Columbus, but the way he kind of needled them after that trip up there.
Thing. Good for him.
That was good. That was good stuff. All right, I'll change gears. Get us back to Ohio State football. And as I said, Zach, it's been a little bit of a quiet period. And so another sort of manufactured debate that people came up with, Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart are going to recruit Urban Meyer to go to USC.
Not happening.
I'm already so tired of this argument. Urban has only been retired for 4 full months, and already the wheels are turning on this debate, and it won't stop. And I think it's a pointless waste of time.
Such a waste of time. We're wasting our breath right now talking about it. There is no way Urban Meyer goes to USC. No way. If he does, listen, I will sit here on camera by myself and say I was wrong, an apology, whatever it may be. There is no way Urban Meyer goes to USC. I have talked to multiple people. Heck, I was just with Coach Meyer 2 weeks ago, right? We didn't talk about coaching, but I can
That's pretty telling right there.
Yeah, I know, right? The only way I can see him go back to coaching is one of two ways. One, Ryan Day's very successful here. In 5 or 6 years, he moves on to the NFL, right? He's a New Hampshire guy, maybe moves on to the NFL. I could see Coach Meyer possibly coming back then. He's only going to be 59 years old, 60. Mm-hmm. Nate is playing baseball right now at UC. He's going to be done playing. That's the only time I could see him coming back. To Ohio State. The only other option is, let's say Brian Kelly messes up, gets fired, whatever it may be. Granted, they went to the playoff this past year. Whatever happens, and Notre Dame comes and literally dumps a truck of money on Urban Meyer's front lawn and is paying him $10+ million a year. It's the only way I could see him going back. Either Notre Dame, if they throw a ton of money at him, or Ohio State 5 or 6 years from now, because he's gotten away from it. He's doing what he's doing. He's been able to watch Nate, and then the job opens up.
I think there's just been, it's so easy to tie it. It's a major program. They need revitalization. Urban is one of the best that's ever done it in that department. It's like, USC, that makes sense, and they'll pay to have him come. Well, that's ignoring all the other details. If he just wanted to be at a major program and compete for national championships, he didn't have to retire.
Right.
He could have stayed at Ohio State as long as he wanted to.
Yep.
We're ignoring what's in his head. And Gene Smith talked about that when he was asked about it last week at USA Today. George Schroeder did a story. He said, well, I think he is feeling better. He's not feeling headaches. Well, part of that is the stress of day-to-day of being a college football coach.
No doubt.
And I said it to you 100 times when I was in that meeting with him, with 3 other local reporters here, and he's talking about the inability to blow a whistle or to watch film for extended periods of time. Those are 2 pretty significant parts of just being a coach. So is he feeling better right now? You probably know, you spoke to him more recently than I have, but yeah, he's feeling better. But he's not having to he didn't have to go through spring ball. He didn't have to recruit. He didn't have to be on his phone 24 hours a day. He's spending time with the grandkids. We see all these pictures of him, whether he's in Miami with Snoop Dogg or going to Las Vegas.
Man Snoop.
Yeah, doing all this other stuff with the kids or with Shelly. Yeah, life is a lot more fun that way.
Here's what people have to realize, right? Just because he's feeling better doesn't mean, oh my God, he's magically healed, and guess what? He's going to coach again. He's feeling better for the exact reasons that you said. He has a cyst in his brain, right? Regardless. The one thing that he has told me to my face, the one thing that triggers it is stress. Right? Guess what? He has no stress right now. When you wake up at 8 a.m. on Muirfield with a cup of coffee, reading the paper, and then go to your 9:30 a.m. tea time, there's no stress, right? He's not having to watch film. He's not having to worry about 105 guys on Ohio State football team going out on the weekends, going to class, doing all these things. He's not having to be in the facility each and every day, recruiting, on the phone all the time. There is a lot of stress that comes with being the head football coach of Ohio State. There is. It's probably the most stressful job in the country. But, of course he's going to feel better. He doesn't have that anymore. He's going on vacations. some people may know, some people may not know. Coach, sorry if I admit it, he built a beautiful house down in Florida. Massive, huge house. Guess what? That's where he's going to go on vacation. There is no stress with being on the beach in a big, beautiful house in Florida, right? He doesn't want the stress again. It's maybe after 5 or 6 years he's going to have the itch to come back. But right now, of course, he's stress-free, loving life, going to a Blue Jackets game on a Tuesday night, hanging out in a suite.
Right.
I mean, God, he's just living life right now. Of course it's going to be better.
I think people, they always throw this argument back. Well, he's done it before. You guys have fallen for this the same way that Florida did. I mean, the situations are not the same.
No.
They really are not. And, we could both be wrong. I think we are certainly in the same camp that don't see him coming back, at least in the short term. And part of that, I think, is because he's found a way that he gets some of the responsibility back. I'm not going to pretend like the assistant athletic director job and the captain program that he's doing at Ohio State is going to fulfill or scratch every bit of that itch. Right. But he also gets to still be around football. If he wants to walk over to the Woody, he's not going to get kicked out. Yep. He's still got a thumbprint that gets him in the door, and Ryan Day's not going to turn away one of his mentors. And maybe this TV thing is really going to suit him. He was really good at it when he got that first experience, and he can only get better at it. Certainly nobody knows the game any better, and he was always very good handling press conferences, the media, and the responsibilities that go with that. So I think what you're talking about is so accurate with the stress and vacations and Shelley and the kids. But on top of that, maybe this won't work. I don't know, but everything points to the fact that he's replacing it with something that's at least keeping him in football in a way that could keep him satisfied. But, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in 5 years.
And the other thing, you made a solid point, is people are bringing up the Florida situation and saying that we're falling for the whole Florida situation. There's a big difference. When he was at Florida and he left, he was losing the team and losing the culture of the program. When he was at Ohio State and just left, he hadn't lost the team. He hadn't lost the culture. He hadn't lost anything. They were tops, right? He didn't have to deal with all the issues that he was having down there at Florida when he left. And so it's a completely different situation. Whether people want to believe that, buy into that, whatever, it's true. It's a completely and utterly different situation from leaving Florida to now leaving Ohio State.
All right, you said we were wasting our breath. Let's try and get it back now. We'll wrap it up, get you out of here.
Yeah.
Unless the host has something else on his mind.
No, I don't. We just touched on 2 topics, so that I think people are – it's like the world we live in, right? People's perceptions somehow, some way are so warped. Like, go back. Boston would never have a viewing party with 13,000 people in TD
for
Garden.
round 2.
It would never happen, right? But guess what? People who want to talk about the Urban Meyer thing, like I said, I was just with him a couple weeks ago. He's loving life. He's okay. He will never go to USC. Won't happen. Will not happen. So, we just talked about stuff that people have built up this entire stories, right? And they have no platform to build these stories on.
Well, that's what Lettermen Live, presented by Byers Auto, is for. We can clear the air.
We just knock them down. Yep,
bring them out, knock them down. He's Zach Boren. We're going to cut him loose. Appreciate having him down here to HQ, as always, to talk about Ohio State football, Blue Jackets, whatever pops into his mind. Now we're going to throw it over to Berm and get some recruiting takes for what's going on with Ohio State on the trail. All right, now we bring in Berm for our recruiting update as Ohio State hits this interesting part of the calendar in May where on campus things are slower, but the recruiting trail may be picking up a little bit of momentum. I don't know. Berm knows better than anybody else, so we'll bring him in and get his take there. Berm, what's the latest here? It seems like people are talking about Paris Johnson again. It's never ending. This might be the recruitment that goes all year.
Yeah, I mean, he's somehow turned into this cycle Zach Harrison in a way that people can just never stop being intrigued by what is happening with him and around him. This week, it's the announcement that he's transferring to Cincinnati Princeton High School from St. Xavier, where he'd been the previous 3 years. The reasoning is sound and it's logical. Xavier doesn't allow for players to enroll early at colleges of their choice, and that makes him need to move on. It's not the first guy to do that. Tate Martell left Bishop Gorman to enroll early. There's other guys around the country that do it, but obviously with Paris Johnson and the fact that he's been on the road with Darion Henry and Jaheim Thomas over and over and over again, on the road with Mike Daniels, the head coach at Princeton, it certainly adds some intrigue and another layer of curiosity to that commitment and that recruiting, because those guys have all individually said they're not interested in a package deal. If it works out, it works out. But it seems to me more and more that they are pushing towards that idea of all being together at this level now and at the next.
So, Berm, reading your recruiting question of the day at Lettermen Row and dotting the I's with the notebooks, it still seems as if you remain confident that Paris Johnson's commitment is going to last. Everybody else, there seems to be some panic or uncertainty. I don't even know the right word for it. Why is it that at this point you still believe that it's a good fit and that will work out between Ohio State and that 5-star offensive lineman?
I think uncertainty is a fair choice of words. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm confident that he ends up there. I just think that it makes the most sense. There's a huge need. He's still a Cincinnati kid who, he wasn't born in Cincinnati, but he's lived there all of his life. His love is Ohio State. That's what he loves. And I know that he's enjoying the recruiting whirlwind tour that he's been on, but I just think at the end of the day, the relationship between Paris Johnson and Ohio State and the developing relationship now with Ryan Day is still better than the relationships he has anywhere else. And I think that he understands that he's in a power position right now, which maybe a year ago, when you are just entering into the real recruiting limelight and you commit early, you sort of lose sight of the fact that you are the person in charge of this. And I don't blame any kid for getting on the road and seeing different places, but I think at the end of the day, home is home, and he loves Ohio State, and he has for a long time. And I think he's doing his due diligence, which is fair, but bottom line, Ohio State's the spot that makes the most sense for him.
Yeah, rolling along here on Lettermen Live, brought to you by Byers Auto. Berm, let's pull back for a second and note, Clemson again had another massive pickup. People are talking already about this guy being an NFL prospect at quarterback, and he's just now committed to college. What's going on with Clemson? How significant are these developments?
I'll tell you
How is Ryan Day, Mark Antoni, how are they reacting? How do they keep pace with this?
This is four commitments in a row for Clemson that are 5-star players. It started with Fred Davis, the number 1 ranked player in Florida. It then went to Brian Brzee, the number 1 ranked player in America. It then went to DeMarcus Bowman, the number 2 ranked player in Florida and a 5-star running back. And now DJ, the quarterback out in California, whose last name I cannot pronounce and therefore I will not try.
That's why I skipped it.
Who is the number 1 ranked quarterback in the country. What they are doing right now is incredible and scary, because if you think about the fact that they've won 2 of the last 3 national championships with what has been relatively average recruiting until now, it's a whole different world. I think we'll see in the next couple of years how Clemson staff handles this type of player profile, because it changes everything that you do at your school. The minute you have players that are expected to be great as opposed to players that you think you can develop and work into a different – expectations are not always easy to live up to. But they're just doing something incredible. And I've said it before. It's when these kids leave Clemson, somehow it seems as though they're in some trance and all they can talk about is Clemson. And I don't know if it's a slide in the lobby. I don't know if it's the fact that they are putting something in the water. I don't know what's going on at Clemson, but it's incredible. And they've put themselves in a position right now where even Alabama looks at them and goes, how do you compete with that? So it is fascinating to watch. Ohio State is suddenly in a position arms race wise where it feels like they're behind, which 10 years ago is just unheard of. And so now you look at what the Buckeyes are going to be forced to do. It'll be interesting to see if they do some more facility upgrades and that kind of stuff. But what Clemson's doing, the location that they're at, the conference that they play in, which is terrible as far as, week in, week out scheduling. So it's a guaranteed 11, 12 wins a year, a coach that's never going to leave, assistant coaches that for some reason have never been really tied to other jobs. I don't really know why. Jeff Scott, the receiver coach there, the defensive coordinator whose name is escaping me at the moment. Right. They have just never left, and they're paying those guys extremely well. But right now it's next level, and I don't know that you should expect it to slow down anytime soon. That doesn't mean Ohio State and other schools aren't going to get good players, because there are still a lot out there. But it's 6 of the top 50 kids already committed to Clemson, and it's May 5th or May 6th. So it's a pretty impressive run.
When you went through that list of the top players at their position in the country, there's a big one that Ohio State is chasing at wide receiver, and Julian Fleming. You've written about him a couple times in the last couple weeks. At some point in the next couple months, he's probably going to be offering his commitment, making a choice. So I assume that Clemson is going to be a factor in this as well. How is this one going to shake out for Ohio State? Can Julian Fleming be a guy that stems the tide a little bit?
Somebody has to do it. I mean, a lot of it would be sort of salved over if Paris Johnson would stop playing these recruiting visits and doing that stuff and come out and say, hey, I'm a Buckeye, I'm staying here. That would make it easier for Darion Henry and Jaheim Thomas and other top 100 players in the country to feel some sort of confidence that, hey, the best player in Ohio understands what they're doing at Ohio State, so we can too. Julian Fleming, as I've written for months, is an Ohio State-Clemson battle, and it's been that way since February, basically. The Penn State talk all along has been important to pay attention to, but it's always kind of been overhyped a little bit because he spends so much time in Happy Valley, because his girlfriend's there, because he's an hour and a half away from there. But ultimately, I think this comes down to Ohio State and Clemson. I expect him to make a decision by the beginning of this football season, and I expect the relationship with Brian Hartline and Ryan Day, which he has consistently said over and over again is his best, to win out. And I think that I was the first person to crystal ball him to Ohio State back in November after his November visit to Columbus. And since then, things have only gotten better between him and the Buckeyes. And I know he's been to Clemson. I know that his family liked Clemson. His family really liked Georgia a lot. And there's a scheduled visit to Georgia at the end of this month, which is obviously something to pay attention to, because Georgia is similar to Clemson in a way they can do pretty much whatever they want. But I just feel like Ohio State's going to win this battle.
All right. Stay tuned to Berm for all that stuff at LettermenRow.com, on Twitter at Berm. Obviously, he'll cover that from every angle as Ohio State rolls on throughout this nonstop cycle, putting together the next recruiting class. It never ends. Didn't even talk about 2021. It's like the first time in weeks that we just focused on one recruiting class. How about that?
Well, it's 5-Star Monday, right? What day is it? I'm so confused. But I do know that Ohio State's going to be fine. So everyone out there who's freaking out, just relax a little. Enjoy. It's a beautiful day. Summer's coming. Try to just take a look at what you have. And don't worry. Don't covet your neighbor's recruiting class. Focus on your own.
And enjoy a 5-Star Monday. Words to live by from Berm. We appreciate him, as always, hanging out with us from Lettermen Row down in his recruiting headquarters facility, bunker, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. We had Zach Boren down here at HQ with us to hang out. It's been Lettermen Live. It's been brought to you by Byers Auto. I'm Austin Ward. So for Berm, Zach, we'll see you next time.